I mean, because what it does is it just shows what's your commitment in our relationship. What's your commitment to me? Will you get tithe of your time? Will you tithe of your life? That was last week. That was tithe. This week, we're going to talk about the offering. And we don't take offering up in service. We don't take tithe up in service. We preach on it, and then if you don't want to do it, that's your thing. It's back there. Deal with it. Don't mess with the money chambers. We put them back there. If the widow comes in and throws her 2 mites in the jar, that's good. God hears it, not us. We don't want to hear it. So, well, I do want to hear it, but not in that mannerism. It's knowing that God is moving in our lives and bringing forth His will and His direction in that. So we're going to move into offering, and we're going to talk about what God says in offering and what He's doing in offering. And this may come at you a little bit different this morning. All right? Jesus gave so He could get. That's not, we talked about love this week, that you don't love so that you can get love. He loves because he just loves. He wants us there. And when I say he gave so He could get, He gave so He could get you into kingdom. He says, I'm going to give because I want to get them into my kingdom. That's the only place where it's right to give in a manner so that you get, is in that place where Jesus gave that He get. In Ephesians 5:2, it says, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave Himself up for us as a fragrant offering, a sacrifice to God. That's Ephesians 2. Maybe. Okay. But Ephesians 5:2, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave Himself up for us, a fragrant offering and a sacrifice of love. How we respond is our offering to Him. How we respond, how He gave to us, is how we respond to that, is our offering to Him. In the Bible, there's 5 main kind of types. I'm going to say that there's 5 kind of types there. And I'm going to move through some of these kind of quickly, because these are studies in themselves. But we're going to just kind of overview some of it, okay? Typically in the Bible, the offering is, the word is korban. You hear offering, it's the korban of what we give God. But these are different words. The first would be the burnt offering, the olah. It's a worship offering completely surrendered to God in Leviticus 1:3. If the offering is a burnt offering from the herd, you are to offer a male without defect. You must present it in the entrance of the tent of the meeting, so that will be acceptable to the Lord. Kind of pay attention to that one. Kind of pay attention to all of them, but that one we're going to come back to in a minute. The grain offering, the mikah, is representing the fruit of a human labor in a dedication, Leviticus 2:1. And these go in order: Leviticus 1, Leviticus 2, Leviticus 3, Leviticus 4, Leviticus 5. It's doing these areas, and that's Leviticus is the law, the Levitical law. When anyone brings a grain offering to the Lord, must consist of fine flour. He is to pour olive oil on it and put frankincense on it. There's the peace offering, the zabach shalem. From now on, what we're going to do is I'm going to have an interpreter. Jill will be standing beside me for all Hebrew words from here out. Expressing thanksgiving and fellowship, Leviticus 3:1-2. Or Jeff, you can do it if you want. If one's offering is a peace offering and he offers an animal from the herd, whether male or female, he must present it without blemish before the Lord. The sin offering, the shatat, atonement of unintentional sin, emphasizing purification and forgiveness, of Leviticus 4:1, speak to the Israelites and say, when anyone sins unintentionally and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, he must bring to the Lord a young bull without blemish as a sin offering. The guilt offering, as sham, similar to the sin offering, the guilt offering addresses specific transgressions and required restitution. Leviticus 5:15, if someone acts unfaithfully and sins unintentionally against any of the Lord's holy things, he must bring this guilt offering to the Lord, an unblemished ram from the flock. But these are just all types of Levitical law offerings that God, and we can say, well, we're in a New Testament time, we're not under the law. But there's laws that we still need to be operating out of. Just because Jesus fulfilled them doesn't mean that we don't operate in them. And offering is a law of what God says in His Word throughout. We'll show that in the New Testament in a minute. But I look at this I want to read this better the way I wrote it out, because sometimes my brain doesn't lay it in there quite as good. There's a bank of love that you deposit in. and you save, you invest, and it's your account. It's completely your account. If your life is one that never deposits but only withdraws, eventually the account is empty and debted. You have a bank account where you continually can put money in for saving, investing, and love, and everything that what God has. But if you don't put into that account, but just keep drawing off of it, it will eventually go bankrupt and debted. It's the same way in marriage. These guys will probably talk to you about in marriage. That with husband and wife, there's a love account. And if all you do is pull on someone else's love, eventually you'll bankrupt that marriage. Because there'll be no love left to give because you took it all without putting back in. So there are places in that you need to pay attention to, but you know that and the debt and the bank is never empty. God is never empty and He is never debted. Okay, it's your position. You're putting in. I'm not saying that God here, because you can get into the whole thing of getting this off track a little bit. But God in the position of He owns it all. Everything is His. He's just allowing you to steward it while you're here before you either go to live with Him or go to live in another place because you chose to follow Him or chose not to follow Him. When I go into my bank, I'm in a small town in Crothersville. They have known me since I was 12 years old. That was the first loan I got. It was for a guitar. Really was. Because one of Mom and Dad's good friends who's a banker says Sam needs to start building his credit. So we need to get him a loan. And so I got a loan for a guitar and started building my credit. But when I go into that bank to this day, I don't need to bring forth my ID because they know me. They also know that I probably ain't got a whole lot of money in there unless Jody is taking care of it. But they know me. It's the same thing with kingdom. Are you going into kingdom? Are you going into God's throne room? Are you going into God's bank? Are you making deposits, withdrawals, earnings, savings, investing? Are you speaking out your life plans? Are you doing that? Does God know you? Does He really, really know you? What's your relationship there? What's your offering in that? First Trinity Savings and Reserve. That's the name of His bank. First Trinity Savings and Reserve. Let us manage your retirement. Savings guaranteed by blood atonement and the cross. First Trinity Saving and Reserve. You want a bank there, I'm telling you. In Matthew 7:21, it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven." I didn't know if you came to my bank. I never seen you. You didn't have an account. You just showed up every now and then and wanted to cash a check from somebody else. What's our relationship with God? What's our relationship with Jesus? But the one who does the will of the Father who is in heaven, on that day many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did I not prophesy in your name? Didn't I make some big loans? Didn't I do some big things?' And He'll say, 'Cast out demons in your name, do many mighty works in your name.' And then He will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you lawless workers.'" See, you can go to a bank but not have a relationship with the bank where they don't know you and you have to have an ID card. You can get a loan. You can do all kinds of things in there. But if your life is not in a position where you are continually operating in and out of, and all this is just groundwork for what we're going to talk about with offering, okay? Offering is a deposit into our saving grace of God. All right? If tithe is knowing we need a good investment to grow, if tithe is understanding and knowing that we need a good investment to grow, then offering is the sheer dedication to make it happen. Okay? Tithe says, I know that I need to make investment into what's going on. Offering says, I am dedicated to the things of making my life grow in these things. Tithe puts our money in kingdom system. Offering puts us in kingdom system. That's the difference in the two. Your tithe says, I want to invest in kingdom because I want everything in my life to be operating out of what God has, not out of how I know how to manage it or how I know how to do it. Offering says, my full soul, my full body, my full life, every part of me is invested into what you are, God, who you are, and that's where I'm living, and that's where I'm staying, and that's how I live and move and have my being. That's what offering is in our life. That's what the offering of praise, what the offering of worship, what we do now. That's what God was always wanting. He says, I do not delight in the blood of bulls and sacrifices. When he says that's a sweet fragrance that comes before me, he says, I don't delight in that part of it. That's not what I want. But there's got to be a system where you guys understand gratitude, faith, and commitment to me. And if that's what it takes, that's what we're going to do. Offering moves us from a ritualistic life to a spiritual, relational, personal relation with God. That's what offering does. That's why I say that God will bless you in tithe, but He'll blow your life apart in offering. He will light you up like a Roman candle in your offering. Tithe will get you based into what God is doing. Offering will move you into explosion realm where you light the turbojets on that baby and off you rock and roll. That's where I like to roll. If it don't rumble and it don't rock, it ain't worth doing it. Amen. I like what Ted Nugent says, and I like Ted Nugent. I don't care if you guys don't like that too much. He's my kind of a guy. He says, I don't like going to NFL games because I want to be on the field participating in it, not looking at it. And I'm like, that's the truth. Much rather be in the middle of it than sitting there looking at it. Bores me to tears. And especially when they got bad bunnies that are idiots that are doing whatever that totally do not represent my nation, my kingdom, my church, my anything, but do nothing but spit on it. I don't want to watch it. I'm not supporting it. I advise you don't. Corrupt. Nah. I'm not going. I'm sorry, Father. I try to stop on Facebook. I'll try to stop here too. Whew. But she-bears, Father. Just she-bears. It's tough, man. It's tough. Luke 6:38. Sorry, I'm still me a little bit. I'm trying. Jesus is working hard. Oh, man. Sometimes he's using a sledgehammer and a crowbar, but he's working hard. Luke 6:38 says, give and it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. He will put it in your lap for with the measure for you use it, will it be measured back to you. Jesus says, pick up your apron and then open it up to receive my blessing. That's what they're referring to there. He says, I'll pour it into your lap. He says, you ever see the mom a long time ago when she wore an apron in the kitchen, she wanted to fill it up with fruit out in the garden? She'd go out there and hold that apron up and start chucking it all in there and it was falling off. That's what Jesus says, I want to do to your life. That's what Jesus wants you to operate in. He says, with good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, it will pour into your lap. That's what I want you to move in. That's what I want you to operate in, but your focus needs to get on my system. That don't operate in a worldly system. You can see people out there that make money in the worldly system. I can tell you that ends in nothing. Most of them die miserably crying out. But in Jesus, it's different. Tyndall says this. If you look into the Tyndall commentary on it, it says, the forgiven are open-hearted, and open-heartedness has consequences. Jesus commands his hearers to keep giving and reminds them that when they do this, people respond in kind. And not only in kind, for he spoke of good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. The metaphor is for measuring out grain in such a way that it ensures the full volume is given. They put it in the bucket and they start shaking the bucket to make sure there's more room, like what I like to do with M&Ms. Your lap is really your bosom and refers to the fold in the outer garment made as it is hung over the girdle. It was used as a kind of pocket. Jesus concludes this section with a reminder that there is reciprocity. I can't say that word this morning. Reciprocity. You guys know what it means? I have to pick a smaller word next time instead of reading from Tyndall. And the affairs of life. You get back what you put in. He is apparently making us of a proverbial saying, which is one form or another, turns up in the number of the rabbinic sayings. It shows up a lot in rabbinic sayings. That's why the Jews are blessed to this day and the richest people in this nation. It's not because they're greedy or anything else. They operate out of the blessings of God because they know how to tithe, they know how to give offering, and they know how to lay out in their lives. Even if they don't recognize the Messiah, they still have the promises in the book of God that they understand how to do that, and it brings blessing into their life. In 1 Corinthians 9:10, it says, does he not speak certainly for our sake? It was written for our sake because the plowman should plow in hope and the thresher should thresh in the hope of sharing in the crop. He's saying right there that understand my ways, that if you go out and you plow up something, you work that out, you dig up the stumps, you get everything out of your way, and you put seed into something, it's going to bring forth reciprocity, that thing. Carol, I need you to come up and say that word. And then tell me how to put yeah. If we have sown spiritual things among you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more? He's speaking about when you sow into a spiritual kingdom dynamic, that there you will receive a material operational system in your life. You know, it's not why we do everything. We're not preaching the prosperity gospel here. We're not going to get off on that so that we can say, just sow some seed so that I can have 3 jets today. No, we're talking about moving kingdom forward. We're talking about moving kingdom forward and what God does when you do that. In 2 Corinthians 9:6, the point is that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whosoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. God gives a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that, having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. Offerings are seeds. They're voluntary. You decide if you want to sow them. You decide if you want your garden. You decide what you want. Unlike tithing, there's no set amount. So it's all about your personal choice and your willingness to give and what you want in your life. The Bible teaches the principle of sowing and reaping. The more you give, the more you will receive. That was Luke 6:3-8. Just like planting seeds, giving opens the door to future blessing. Offerings are typically given to the source of your spiritual growth, whether that's the church, the faith leader, or someone who has nourished your soul. That's 1 Corinthians 9:11. I told Mom the other day, I said, I'm looking at fruit trees. I'm thinking about putting out a whole bunch more fruit trees. She said, do you think we're going to be here that long? I mean, you guys, if you know Mom, you know that's... I live like Jesus is coming tomorrow, and I prepare like Jesus is coming in 100 years. If Jesus is coming tomorrow, I don't want to miss what he's got now. If Jesus is coming in 100 years, I want to be prepared for that, and I want to sow into a generation beyond me. I'm sowing into a generation because it's an offering. I am 60 years old. Do you think I like getting up, running around with teenagers on a Thursday night? I would rather take a nap in a recliner. They're all out of the room, so I could say that. But I leave with more energy on Thursday nights and more smiles and more in my heart and a red flame that's burning with coal in my spirit, because I offer myself as a living sacrifice to what God is doing in their lives, to watch a generation bring forth God's will in this hour, and they're already starting to do it. That's what we sow into. And everybody in here, I don't care what age you are, who you are, what you are, you got something to sow into the kingdom. He gave you a mustard seed, if nothing else, and you wait to see what that plant grows into. Last night, I thought I had sermon done. I was laying down. My eyes were crossed, and I'm going, I'm going to go lay down. And I kid you not, I literally sat on the edge of the bed, and Father said, let's talk about Abraham. I said, okay. And I stood back up, picked up my tea, went back to my desk. And he took me to Genesis 22:1-2. And you guys know this. And he said, after these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham? And he said, here I am. That's the first thing we got to look. That's the first thing we got to do, is when he says, hey, Sam, here I am. That's what Samuel had to do. Ran to Eli twice saying, what do you want, Eli? He said, I want nothing. Quit waking me up. Ran back in there. I don't want nothing. Quit waking me up. He said, oh, ask God what he wants. He said, here I am. He said, take your son, your only son, Isaac, that you waited 99 years for. You worked all your life for. All that you ever wanted for. Your inheritance. Everything that's going to come from. Go get him, bring him out into the land, to the land of Moriah, and offer him. Go get him and offer him. That's the second place that the word offering, burnt offering, olah, is used in the Bible. The first place it's used is in Genesis 8. And it comes from that olah where he's taking his son out to this mountain to offer Isaac on the mountain. And Isaac's saying, "Where are we going, Dad?" He says, "You'll see, son. Come along. Let's get the donkey. Let's load up some branches and some stuff. Let's go. We got to go." I can't imagine that father's heart. Can't imagine. But I can see why this man's known as a man of faith. God was testing him. God had no intention. But God was going to see what Abraham would step into. God does that with us all the time to see what we'll step into. But that first mention of olah, and it comes from the word Allah, A-L-A-H, which basically means to go up. It means to go up. But olah means burnt offering. But it comes from going up with burnt offering. In Genesis 8:21, we're at Noah's covenant. Noah's got off the boat. They've landed on the dry ground. And he goes out and prepares an offering, a burnt offering. And the Lord says it comes up as a sweet fragrance before me. God wasn't sitting up there going, I like the smell of burnt blood and burnt hair and burnt. God wasn't saying that. God was saying that I've now got a people that recognize who I am, who are not polluted by the Nephilim and the other stuff. If you believe that or not, but I do. But he liked the pleasing aroma of the offering. And I don't have these up there for you, so it's just. In Psalm 58, it says, offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving. It's starting to direct us towards, because it's a psalm now, it's talking about the songs of David and the heart of a man who loved the Lord with all his heart, soul, mind, and body. And how he said, bring forth a sacrifice of thanksgiving. And then Ephesians 2:10, where it says, I walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself for us as a fragrant offering. See, when God says, I love the aroma of the offering, he loved the aroma of his son's offering. He didn't love the fact that his son was hanging on a cross down there, being beaten, scourged, bled out, and abused. He loved that he was giving to get, that the offering was one for that. The burnt offering, olah, that we read earlier, about worship offering complete surrender to God. That first one that we read there. See that? Burnt offering, olah. Worship offering complete surrender to God. The very beginning of the law in Leviticus starts this way. It says, if the offering is a burnt offering from the herd, you are to offer a male without defect. You must present it at the entrance of the tent of meeting so that it will be acceptable to the Lord. If you don't start with an offering at the tent of where God lives at, you don't ever go in. If you're not bringing offering to God and bringing offering before God, if you're not living in that life of worship and offering to him, you don't go in. The reason the church is sick and messed up is because the church isn't going in. Our worship matters. When we come in here and when we walk into the door, are we coming in to offer the sacrifice of praise? In other words, are you laying down your own life to offer praise to him for what he has done for you, because he gave you oxygen enough to walk in the door? He started that way. Then he gave you food, then he gave you clothing on your back, then he gave you warmth. And if you're lucky, you'll get an inner tube and get a slide around on what he's playing with in the atmosphere today. Or you can grumble and complain about what God is doing. There's two ways. I mean, you can offer something. You can offer praise and worship, or you can offer up grumbling and other stuff. You can be an Amalekite. You might want, sorry, Father, I probably went a little farther. The Amalekites were the ones that God says never again, because they just totally turned their back on God. God says, I will, you're done. And that's why he told them to wipe them out completely. because of their obstinance. But that's not part of the message today. That's just Sam went into Sam's brain, so don't do that. You don't go in unless you come with surrendered worship offering. You can come into his room, but honestly, it's the outer courts. And many are happy in the outer courts. Many are just fine listening to the elevator music in the outer courts. And that's what it is. What a lot of churches are doing right now, they got smoke machines and fancy lights and all kinds of funny things to get you in there and make you feel excited about how good God is. You don't come in feeling good about God, you got to get all jazzed up on something. You should come into his house going, man, you are good all the time. Man, your mercy endureth forever. Oh, the joy that I have before me, that I can walk with you, I can talk with you, I can live with you, I can move with you, I can have your ways. Oh, I'll climb that mountain, I'll move through these things, I'll go that direction. That's worship, that's the offering. Offering takes something that you think that you worked for 99 years to birth, and it lays it to the Lord with a sharpened knife and a wood pile ready to sever it from your life. It says, anything that you want, Father, I'll give it to you. Because I know it all comes from you, and I'm going to walk in you. And that's a hard path. It's not an easy path. But you have to choose this day who you will serve and who you will worship. You've got to choose it minute by minute, second by second. Who am I going to worship? Who am I going to serve? Who am I going to walk in? Matthew 5:23 says, if therefore you are offering your gift at the altar, and then you remember that you made your brother mad, and you've got problems with him, lay it down and go back and fix it. Don't come before me and tell me how good you are, or it all is, without having things fixed up in your life with your brothers. You know? And sometimes there's stuff that's going on where they don't want to forgive, and you just have to just pray it out and wait it out, but you have to forgive. No matter what, you have to forgive. You don't like it? Tough. You have to forgive. It bothers you what happened to you a long time ago and how bad somebody was to you? Tough. Forgive. Jesus says, I did it for you. You're still doing it to me today, and I still forgave you for it. I knew that when you walked out of the room, you were going to go out and do something stupid, and I still forgave you for it, before you even did it. So if he can do it, I can do it. It's tough. It's a bitter pill, but we can do it. But then we can go in with our offering. Then we can walk into his throne room, and we go, I can still do that. In pain, I can still do that. Because he is good, and I know that his mercy endureth forever. I know that his grace is so abounding that I can never, ever use it all up. And I'm not going to try. Don't sin to just keep on sinning. I just want to live in him and know the goodness of my God. And so that's what offering is. Offering says, oh, I'm going to sacrifice these parts of my life. All these things aren't, because I want to bank on you, Father. I want to bank on you moving my life. I want to bank on you that you're guiding my paths, that you're bringing forth. Because he brings things to your doorstep that you can't even imagine are coming. Watched him do it. I don't, sometimes I said, oh, Sam, you shouldn't have said that. That's stupid. You're bragging. But the thing is that coal that burns in me when I have watched my God supply all my needs according to his riches and glory, if I don't say it, you don't get to pick it up. And I can tell you I came from absolutely squat, drinking powdered milk and government cheese because my dad died when I was 16 years old and life was hell, pure hell, to a God has blessed me with a mansion. And everything that I've ever wanted or desired, he showed up in. And I've worked hard for it, but it's been with his grace and mercy supplying and directing and letting me steward the things of my life to lead me into what I have. And so now there's guitars everywhere. And Jody has fishing lures. Don't understand that, but women like to carry fishing lures on their fingers and their ears. But that's okay. If you're fishing, they're right there. You just grab one hook, on it, go. It works, Jonah. Date a girl that's got fishing lures, all right? Here, baby, let me borrow that. Hebrews 13:15. I'll get back to Jesus. Through Jesus, therefore, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise, the fruit of our lips that openly profess his name. Openly professes his name. Jesus. He's changing it. Romans 12:1. I urge you, brothers, on account of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. It's your spirit poured out. It's worship. Bank it. Take it to the bank. Start a savings account. Invest in what God is doing. Establish your life in tithe, because it will bring you forth that faith, that commitment, just gratitude. All those things start flowing out of you when you see God bring in. Because when his word in Malachi says, I'll pour out a blessing that you can't contain there too, he says, test me in this. He says, test me in this. It starts in Malachi. Malachi, for those Italians in the room. I don't know who I picked that up from, but a long time ago, but it's stuck in my brain. The book of Malachi, the Italian book. But test it. Test it. Test and see if you can outgive God. I'll tell you, he can't. I'll just flat out tell you, you cannot outgive him. You'll find $20 bills laying on the street. Done that. You'll pray and say, Father, I thank you for restoring the things that I've lost and the things that I've misplaced. I thank you for doing it. I've done that. Found $100 bills laying by the side the burn piles that I'd lost. God brought them right back. He says, test me in this. There's coals laying on the floor, people. There's blue flame coals. If I say that God has told me that when I lost something and I prayed and said, Father, would you return the lost things, the things that are hidden from me? Would you restore them? I found my wallet in the trash place. I found my keys just show up. I found $100 bills laying out in the middle of the yard that should have been ran over by a mower. Tools. On and on and on and on, God has showed up. So I will shout his glory from the rooftop. And I've done it. I've stood on top of my roof, loud as I could. You need to do that one time. It'll get you a lot easier in church if you stand up there one time. You want to get yourself freed up from something, go do something out on the edge. Go right there on the peak of that thing. If it scares you to death, claw your way up that thing. Tie yourself off so we don't have to get a call when you're over its neck. But other than that, find a safe way, get up there and shout from your rooftop, Jesus! You want to mess people up in the room, I don't care what room you go in. You shout Jesus in a room, whatever, everything in there gets real nervous. The baddest boys in the room start running for the cracks in the halls. They're either going, that guy is flat whacked out and I don't want nothing to do with him. But whatever it is, just shout Jesus in some places. Works on the enemy too. Devil hates it. So does all of his minions. Roll with that name. Bring it as an offering into what God has got. God has much in store for you. We're going over this because we are walking into a time of blessing in the earth, in the middle of whatever. They will know the blessings of God poured out upon his people. It's a right alignment. Got to get it all in right alignment, okay? Heavenly Father, I thank you for this house. I thank you for this people. And I thank you that we are called by your name. I thank you that your goodness and mercy follows us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in your house, Father. I thank you that your goodness and mercy goes before us, your face is shining upon us, Father, and that we walk in the blessings of Aaronic blessing. That we walk in all those things, Father, that we walk in your favor, that we walk in your sight, that we walk in your heart. And Father, I just thank you that we are coming into alignment to a greater understanding of your kingdom and your kingdom operation, Father. And I thank you that would be a flow through of our lives out into the earth, just to watch your grace and mercy abound and your love just hammer people, Father, the goodness of our God. Because it's an hour when people need to know the goodness of God. So, Father, I just thank you for what you're doing today. I thank you that we receive, Father, what you've got for us, that you bring forth revelation, knowledge, and understanding, Father, and that everything of you just flows through our life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.